Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Truth. I'm your host, one you love the most, Niall Hassan, back with a brand new episode here in The Truth. Back once again with my boy, AJ Ponciano. Again, AJ, how you doing? Probably better than me.
Yeah, no, still doing good. Doing even better. So I got 98 out of 100 on this fantasy draft or on this mock draft. So, I mean, this so far been according to Fantasy Pros, my best draft to this date.
Yeah, you were bragging about that when we recorded the tip show. If you guys cannot tell, for a couple reasons. One, because we're wearing the same clothes. And two, my voice sounds like I smoked 40 cigarettes today. We are recording the two shows back to back. We are getting towards the end of the fantasy season. There's a couple other shows we want to get out. Obviously, this is a terrible time for me to be doing shows as far as my voice, but school starts on Monday. It's just going to be easier to get everything basically squared away before that. So anyways, today we have a 14-team mock. AJ got a 98. I got an 85, so he beat me there. But we'll go over the picks. I'm going to do something different for the 14 and 16 team. Obviously, first of all, we're not going to go through every pick. Like once we get to probably round 12, we'll cut it off. But I'm also not going to go like 101, C-Mac, 102, Bijan. I'm just going to basically say our picks. And in between, I'm just going to name the names that went off. That way you guys can know. And also, we'll be sitting here for 50 minutes and talking about the names. So AJ got the first pick in this mock draft. Good for him. Finally got a high pick in a 14 team or a 16 team or just in general. I don't know. Is this your first overall time getting number one, or have you got number one before?
No, I think the highest I've gotten is 3.
Yeah, I mean, you usually get like the back of the pack kind of. So you got 101. I got 107. So 101, C-Mac.
Yeah.
Now, we had this conversation actually in the 8-team mock. But that didn't get uploaded because of uploading issues. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked before. With McCaffrey's calf strain, does that like cause you any concern with drafting C-Mac 101? Or is there any other options you'd consider here?
I think the only only player I consider would be Bijan at the 101. And with McCaffrey, he has been pushed all offseason. He hasn't played in any preseason game, and there's no need for that to happen, especially with the calf injury happening pretty decently early on. Again, 18 mock draft, I think it's easier to be like, okay, maybe if I'm too concerned, let's go with Bijan here. 101, this could carry over, especially because McCaffrey's injury history throughout his career. But when you get to this deep of a league, when you get past that 10 mark, you have to draft McCaffrey with that number one pick just because of the sheer amount of volume that he's expected to get and the production that he's expected. I think I was looking, he's projected like the most yards by any running back on the ground through the air by like 300. Same with touchdowns. I think he's projected like 3 or 4 more touchdowns than the next guy at the running back position. You just have to take the upside. Yes, maybe an actual draft this pick may take me a little bit longer to decide, but when I only have 30 seconds and you're in this deep draft, that upside is huge with McCaffrey, especially because of the pure fantasy point difference between RB1 and RB2 last year with McCaffrey.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there with McCaffrey. I mean, look, McCaffrey's the best fantasy player. We know that. Obviously, the calf strain is part of it. But it's one of those things, again, that we talk about in our tip show. You got to trust your gut. Is the Madden curse going to affect Christian McCaffrey? I mean, hey, he's already got a calf strain. But it's one of those things that with McCaffrey I'm struggling. With McCaffrey being that 101 pick there, you just kind of have to get him. If you can't worry about too much about injuries. It's easier to take a risk when you're in an A team because you're just filled with lineup there. But anyways, Bijan right after CD, Brees, Tyreek, Jay Jets. I select Amon-Ra 107. It was between Amon-Ra and Jamar Chase. I feel like the top 8 picks, really, mainly top 7, but sometimes top 8, it's a really good position. Like you could be comfortable regardless. And I think 109, 110, you could be comfortable as well. But I think for sure the top 7, maybe 8 picks, so for sure lock there, you're going to get an absolute dude. And I feel like I haven't seen too many fantasy drafts in recent years where that's been the case. But anyways, I selected Amon-Ra over Jamar Chase. And honestly, it wasn't because I don't like Jamar Chase more than I like Amon-Ra. I've started to warm up with Jamar Chase. I just had Amon-Ra last year, and the impact that he had was profound. It helped me out in so many different ways. And I know for sure he's going to get 13 receptions a game. Relatively speaking, again, you can't predict injuries. I know Jamar's had some issues in the past, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I selected Amon-Ra because I haven't seen that 5-6 game absence that I've seen from Jamar Chase, but win-win situation there. And I've selected on Chase, Brown, Garrett Wilson, Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, Marvin Harrison, Puka round one, Kyron, Etienne, Gibbs, Adams, London, Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, and I select Isaiah Pacheco 2-8. Again, same position, Pacheco and A-Chain. It was up between those two. I went with Pacheco. I was thinking of going A-Chain. I don't know. I just feel like A-Chain was so good last year for like randomly no reason that we've kind of seen kind of where his ceiling was at. And the only reason why I say that is because Mike McDaniel has openly said that Achane is a guy that's going to get like 10 to 12 touches a game, just because that's kind of Achane's play style. He's an explosive back, and there's like 5,000 running backs, it seems like, in Miami that are all vying for opportunities. So I think Achane is going to be probably similar to what he did last year, and that's not a bad thing at all. I just think Pacheco is going to be more consistent. I think he's consistently more going to get 20 to 25 touches a game. Where HN may get 10 to 12. Now, HN may get you 50 points and Pacheco may get you an average of 20, but I like consistency more than wide range because, 50 points is great, but when they lay an egg and give me 2 the next week, it's pretty depressing, and it could be in a big moment too. So that's why I went with Pacheco over HN there. Obviously, HN, Ayuk, James Cook, Pittman, Cup. And actually, it's great that you're on the turn here so you can talk about both picks. You went with Chris Olave 214 and Jalen Waddle 301.
Yeah, so Olave, I'm a big fan of him this year. Every year, he's just taken a step forward. And this offense, like I've mentioned plenty of times now, being a Saints fan, it's Clint Kubiak at the offensive coordinator, who was the 49ers' old quarterbacks coach last year with Kyle Shanahan. And it always seems like one of those guys from the Bay Shanahan tree that first year in a new system where they get to run their system, which is also a better system for Derek Carr and Olave, more play action. Get the ball out of Derek Carr's hands quicker to his main options like Olave. I think he's going to get a majority of the targets there. There's number 2 is Rashid Shaheed. I mean, good last year, but he hasn't proven himself as a wide receiver 2. Alvin Kamara is still dealing with a little bit of a back injury. He should be fine and ready to go, but either way, Saints should be playing from behind, unfortunately, a lot of their games this year, and they're going to have to pass a lot. And Olave, like I've said before, I think I'm expecting him to get like almost double-digit touchdowns for the first time in his career and still 1,100, 1,200 yards. And then Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle has still a pretty productive year, even though he missed some time with injuries. And there are some weeks that he just wasn't that productive. Obviously, Tyreek's going to do what he's going to do. I mean, the last 2 years, the same amount of catches and over 1,700 yards. But Waddle is a great number 2. Would be number 1 on most other teams. Just with Tua, I don't trust him with the deep ball, and Waddle really doesn't need the deep ball. He can be that middle guy who just racks up a lot of PPR points. I expect him to be close to what he did just a couple of years ago. And just the amount of volume this offense is going to create, especially explosive volume, and just the amount of touchdowns I think that are going to be dispersed. Again, I've said this a lot of times, Raheem Mostert, I don't expect him to have 20 rushing touchdowns again. And that production, if they put up similar numbers, those touchdowns have to go somewhere else. And I would assume, so maybe some to HM, maybe Jalen Wright out of the backfield, but there's got to be a couple more passing touchdowns there. If there's 12 less touchdowns, 13 less touchdowns on the ground, they have to be moved somewhere else.
After Waddle, Jalen Hurts, Lamar, Kelsey, Kamara, Mahomes, I select Mike Evans 307. I feel great having him on run and Mike Evans, honestly, as my 1-2 punch, especially getting Evans in the 3rd round of a 14-team PPR. I mean, obviously, Amon-Ra, I've said, was consistent with receptions. Evans is consistent with yards. We've talked about this time and time again. 10 seasons in the NFL, 10 seasons of 1,000 yards. That's insane. I'm getting that consistency there with Mike Evans. There's not much more to say. I had all my questions answered last year with Baker Mayfield. I was hesitant. I didn't think it was going to happen, to be honest, because Baker Mayfield and Canales. But now that he's in Carolina and it's just Baker Mayfield, they've established that core. And it seemed like last year was the year that, of all years, Evans wasn't going to get the 1,000 yards, and he did. So good for Evans there, and that just bolsters my wide receiver room. Now my wide receiver room is stacked, especially in a 14-team PPR league there. Devontae Smith, Debo, Rashad White, Joe Mixon, Collins, Cooper, Laporta round out round 3. Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, Metcalf, Diggs, Neighbors, McBride, Connor, and I select Anthony Richardson 408. Anthony Richardson in my final rankings is my number 3 quarterback. Yes, there's a lot of risk with that. But when I do my rankings, I obviously say you can't factor in injuries. If Anthony Richardson plays healthy this season, like the full season, he'll be a top 5, maybe top 3 fantasy quarterback strictly from his rushing value. He did throw the ball really well too. I believe it was a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio in the 3 or 4 games that he played, which was the area of concern. That was the same area of concern when Lamar came into the league. And look what that happened. And now he's already won 2 MVPs. Now I know, I think it was last week, the Colts and whoever they played in the preseason. I don't remember who it was, but I know Anthony Richardson was getting beat down. I think it was the Bengals or something.
Yeah.
They had joint practices and stuff. These Bengals guys were clowning Anthony Richardson. That was a good wake up call for him. It really was. So I think don't read too much into that, but it was just kind of funny.
He
I
did have
see
a good preseason game, though.
say that
He did
again.
have a solid. He did have a solid preseason game, though.
Oh,
It was
absolutely,
good
yeah,
practice.
yeah,
His preseason
yeah,
game,
right.
in situations, was good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. But it was just funny. But it was one of those things is people saw that and they're like, oh my God, I can't draft Anthony Richardson. No, you can't draft Anthony Richardson. And so now I got my top 3 quarterback in round 4 to continue with my team. McLaurin, Rashid Rice, Deontay Johnson, DJ Moore, Mark Andrews. You select Aaron Jones and CJ Stroud.
Yeah, Aaron Jones, he's going to be the RB1. The last couple of years, he's been kind of fighting a couple other guys like Jamal Williams at one point. They were drafted, I believe, in the same year. You also had A.J. Dillon the last 2 years. He, I wouldn't say battling touches with, but he kind of was in a way because they were trying to get A.J. Uh, uh, Dillon the ball a little bit more and try to see what they had there, especially a couple of years ago when he was a little bit younger. But now he's in Minnesota. Not big fan of the whole situation there that's going on, but he's really the only other option early on this season. I mean, it's JJ's and going to be Aaron Jones. Hawkinson isn't there. They're not going to have Addison for the first couple games, and Sam Darnold's going to need some type of support out of the backfield. They're going to have to run the ball because they can't get too pass heavy with Darnold because he's never proven that he could really run a super pass heavy offense. At this point in career, Donald's also a wise enough quarterback to just dump the ball off to his running backs. And Aaron Jones, he hasn't been the best receiving running back in the NFL, but he's put up years of 50-plus receptions. He's had years of right around 400 yards on the ground, but he's also had good years on the ground. I mean, he's had 2 1,100-yard years. He's had 16 touchdowns 1 year on the ground. I don't expect quite those numbers, but again, this kind of goes if you watch your tip shows, I'm drafting guys who have high volume that should get a lot of the volume there. And Ty Chandler's the RB2, and Ty Chandler's not a good running back, not a good receiving back. Can't block at all in the backfield. I just don't see him getting many touches, maybe goal line touches over Aaron Jones. But even then, I think that they went out and got Aaron Jones for a reason. The running back room is very thin, and he's really the only option. And CJ Stroud, one of the big things with Stroud is that he has so many weapons, and I think that's good for him. I'm not drafting any of those weapons there with the Texans, but CJ Stroud I will draft because he has all those weapons. I mean, it doesn't really matter who he's throwing to. Stephon Diggs going to go have a little fit on the sideline whenever he wants. If he still has guys like Collins and Tank Dell or Schultz, now has a true running back, another year in this system where he already just had a good year. Better offensive line, better defense to get him the ball back now. I just really like CJ Stroud, and this is kind of a point where it's Stroud, Burrow, Love, Prescott are kind of the guys I want to decide between, and I need to draft a quarterback because none of them would have been there by my next pick.
Yeah, after that Stroud pick, Ramondre went off the board, then Taylor Swift, Zay Flowers, Dalton Kincaid, Kittle. I select David Montgomery, 507. Running back 2, I think that's relatively solid. I took Richardson, so I knew that I was going to have to get a guy like David Montgomery. I wanted a solid running back 2. Obviously, again, a lot of skepticism going into last year, but he was the touchdown back. So I got a PPR running back in Pacheco, and now I get a touchdown back in David Montgomery. I wouldn't be surprised if Montgomery does get a little bit less of carries, just because they want to put more of an emphasis on Jahmyr Gibbs. But David Montgomery overall is 27. I feel like David Montgomery is 34. just because it feels like he's been in the league forever. But he's 27, getting up there in a little bit in age, but still's got, 1 or 2 really solid years left in the tank. And is that big time running back that's going to get those goal line touchdowns. And you guys know me with running backs. I love guys that are going to be able to get those big time touchdowns. Joe Burrow, Zamir White, Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, Pickens, Ridley, Higgins round 5. Kyler, Daniels, Pitts, Najee, Mostert, Kirk, Tank Dell. I select my guy, Jaden Reed, 608. He's my flex option right here. Really risky. I mean, yeah, he had a good rookie season, but a lot of times guys that have good rookie seasons kind of have a hangover effect. And there's a little bit of some worry there. But all in all, Jaden Reed's a great typical, not even typical wide receiver because he, runs the ball a little bit, catches the ball a little bit. More than anything, I've talked a lot about Jaden Reed, but it's really that vast improved young Packers offense. So have him in my flex position. Definitely some risks there, but I like him. And again, if you guys listen to the tip show, I said go out and get your guys. Jaden Reed is definitely one of my guys. I'm super high on this year. Javonte Williams, Purdy, Godwin, Pollard, Coleman. You select Evan Ingram and Keenan Allen.
Yeah, Ingram, he's kind of in that area where do I really trust what he did last year with the Jags? And I'm willing to take that risk mainly because Calvin Ridley isn't there. Brian Thomas Jr., I love him, but he's also still just a rookie. Kirk's had some injury issues throughout his career. When he was on the field last year, he was really good, but he's also dealing with, I believe, like a calf injury right now or a toe injury that's been sidelining him through most of this camp. And hasn't played in any of the preseason games yet. And Ingram looked really good on his in the Jags last preseason game. I want to say he had a touchdown or two and like 4 or 5 receptions for like 50 yards. So it was shown that he was going to be used in this offense still a good amount. Him and Brian Thomas Jr. both had good games there. But if Evan Ingram can finish like how he did last year, put very similar numbers, I'm drafting him as the tight end 7 right now, tight end 8. If he finished, I believe, last year as tight end 3 or 4. So if he's able to give me that type of production, I'll move forward. And Keenan Allen is kind of a pick that I go back and forth on. It's mainly what I've seen recently of reports is Keenan Allen apparently looks like he's turned back the clock there with the Bears. I mean, he's been super explosive. He's been just getting the ball on a lot of those short routes, which I think is going to be really useful for Caleb Williams because I don't think the Bears' offensive line is that good. And Caleb Williams is kind of going to need that safety blanket. I think it's Keenan Allen in that slot position will be that safety blanket. I could definitely see him having games where he has 12, 13 receptions just because Caleb Williams is about to get sacked and just needs to get the ball out of his hands to a close option. But again, the big thing is just the amount of competition there kind of scares me. But again, if he does look like he's turned back the clock to like 2016, 2017 Keenan Allen, with Philip Rivers there, that type of style that he was playing, or even just these last couple of years of Justin Herbert. If he's just getting a good amount of targets every game, I expect the Bears play from behind. I'm not too high on the Bears like how some people are. Caleb Williams, he's going to be that safety blanket there.
Xavier Worthy, Robinson Jr., Goff, Warren, JSN. I select Roma Dunze. So I go with the rookie here, and I mean, I like Odunze. I mean, I passed on Keenan Allen. I know you drafted him. I think Odunze, honestly, probably not the best of years for Odunze, just because there's a lot of mouths to feed there in Chicago. I'm mainly drafting Odunze for the upside and the fact that I think as the season goes on, Odunze is a guy that could definitely, push the ranks and get a lot of receptions for Chicago. But tremendous receiver. Huh?
Your boy Ladd was there.
I know.
He's right
That's
there.
funny too. I know. Ladd was there, but I wanted to go ahead and go with the Dunze. I know. I'm glad you actually pointed that out. I didn't know if you were paying that close attention. Yeah, so Ladd was there, and you know how much I like Ladd. I did also kind of want to change it up for this mock draft in particular. I felt with my team fit. I felt like Odunze would fit my team well, especially since I have that solid number 1 and number 2 receiver. But again, Odunze, a guy that I think as weeks 8, 9, and 10 start to come up, he's going to be a guy that really starts to kind of pick up the ranks and move forward in a more progressive manner. As you mentioned, Ladd, McConkey selected after. Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, Hollywood Brown, Caleb, Singletary, Hopkins round out round 7. Spears, Thomas Jr., Brian Thomas Jr., Chase Brown, Jonathan Brooks, Brandon Cooks, Zach Moss, Christian Watson. I got my guy, Jake Ferguson. I thought you were going to draft Jake Ferguson. I think it was maybe round 7? No, round 6 when you drafted Evan Ingram. I thought for sure you were going to take Jake Ferguson, but you didn't. So I knew that since it was just me and you, besides a bunch of computers, I had a chance to take a risk with Ferguson. And I meant to actually switch it and do Ferguson and Odunze, but I figured Odunze would go off before Ferguson. So I select Jake Ferguson. Again, for sure the wide receiver 3, even though he's a tight end, potentially wide receiver 2 in this explosive Cowboys offense. Win-win situation for Ferguson. He's my tight end 1 on this team. Very comfortable with that. Jerome Ford, Browns, Zeke Elliott, Cortland Sutton, Zach Charbonnet, and then you get Jordan Addison and Gus Edwards.
Yeah, so Addison last year had a really good rookie year, 900 yards, 10 touchdowns. I don't expect him to have those exact numbers. You can correct me. I think it's a 3-game suspension he got. I don't think it was 4. I believe it is a 3-game suspension. But if you look at Addison's first 3 games last year, yes, he had the 2 touchdowns. But at the time, only had 185 yards those first 3 games there. And after that is when he really started playing well. Even if you look at week 4, he only had 1 target if you want to he could have points. So he basically put up 800, 700 something yards and 8 touchdowns in the last 13 games of the season, which is roughly what he's going to get this year. And I get it. He doesn't have Kirk Cousins like how he did at the beginning of the year, but he didn't really have Kirk Cousins through most of the year. He only had Kirk Cousins for like the first half of the year, and he had guys like Jaron Hall starting games, just rotation of guys. And I get it, Sam Darnold's not the best, but out of all the guys that did play, honestly, I think Sam Darnold's probably the best passing quarterback out of all of them. And just if he's going to be on the same level as a lot of the guys or same page as them, Addison shouldn't have the number 1 wide receiver on him like how he did, or cornerback on him like how he did. He's going to have the number 2 because Jay Jett is going to be there, and he showed that he could be productive with Jay Jett. Yes, there's times where he had 1 catch for 2 yards in week 15. I mean, just bad. But if you look at the week before, he had 6 catches, 111 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It's one of the things. If he can be more consistent, I think he could be someone like a Waddle, like a Devonta Smith, where he can be that great number 2. It's just how consistent can he be? Because there's some weeks where seems like the number 1 option in the offense, and there's some weeks where it just seems like he's not there. But also I like it because I can pair him with a guy like Aaron Jones, like I was mentioning in our tips video. Pair guys together that are on the same team, especially if they're the number 2 and number 3 option out of the top 3. And then with Gus Edwards, I wasn't a big Gus Edwards fan when he was on the Ravens, but going over to this new offense with Harbaugh, they're going to want to run the ball a lot. They're still going to throw the ball, but Gus Edwards is probably the number 1 running back from day 1. It's between him or J.K. Dobbins, and Dobbins is still coming back from an Achilles injury that he suffered last year. And I think I saw something along the lines of like running backs after Achilles injury, like that next season, they put up like the worst numbers of their career. Like it's not even close. Like they may average like 3 touchdowns a game and like 400 to 500 rushing yards. I'd rather go with someone Gus Edwards who's shown that he can be more of that power back, especially that goal line back, and score more touchdowns. And this is one of the risks I'm taking. Is that I don't really know what he's going to do, but he has some of the highest upside of anyone in that running back room to consistently get touches.
Yeah, I agree, especially with kind of where Gus Edwards is at. In Los Angeles, there's a lot of question marks there. Tyler Lockett, Ty Chandler, Jamison Williams, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, Jaleel McLaughlin. I selected, and again, this was kind of a oh shit moment because I realized that Jaleel McLaughlin was my running back 3. But, he's one of those guys that can be a running back 3 or a running back 2, depending on what happens with Denver and their running back situation. Ideally, I would have probably preferred to get a guy like Gus Edwards, but again, it was a situation I was dealt with Jaleel McLaughlin. A lot of overall upside, a lot of pass catching upside, and again, really good system there. Sean Payton, obviously, Sean Payton was your longtime coach. I do like the way that Sean Payton utilizes running backs. I always say, and I said this when Drew Brees retired, but Kamara wasn't going to be the same without Drew Brees, and it wasn't because Kamara wasn't a great running back, but just because Drew Brees was so skillful and basically passing the ball to the running back, getting the running backs involved. I hope this is something similar that can happen in Denver. I just don't think Javonte is the guy to do that. I think Javonte is more of the rushing back, so I think Jaleel McLaughlin will get more opportunities as far as the PPR value, which was strictly why I was drafting him in this position here. Curtis Samuel, Niners, Khalil Shakir, David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy, Mike Williams, Rico Dowdell, Jacoby Myers, Josh Palmer, J.K. Dobbins, Romeo Dobbs, Thielen, Chuba Hubbard, Michael Wilson. I select Dontavian Wicks. Weird having Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed. I knew I was doing that going into it, so I don't want to hear the slander from you guys. But Dontavian Wicks was a guy that I was also very high on. Not as much as Jaden Reed, just because he doesn't have that much of a name. But Dontavian Wicks, again, same thing with Jaden Reed. More just underrated and more as a sleeper per se. But he's really explosive. Mike LaFleur, yeah, that's the coach's name, had said that he was like as close to a Devontae Adams as possible. So when I hear that comparison right there, especially how much LaFleur liked Devontae Adams, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go grab him and see what the backers are going to do with him. And that in itself should tell you to draft Dontavian Wicks. Bears defense, Jalen Wright, Tyler Algier, Gabe Davis, Antonio Gibson. You select Rashid Shaheed and Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, so kind of going with pairing guys together who are on the same team. I have Olave, and now I have Shaheed. I get Shaheed's dealing with an injury right now, but he's the number 2 wide receiver there. And now I have the Saints 2 receiving options in a PPR league. I get it that the Saints are going to be the most explosive offense, but they're going to have to pass the ball a lot. I expect them to be around 30 to 35 pass attempts a game, and a good amount of those should be going Shaheed and Olave's way. Olave's not the explosive guy down the field, but that's exactly what Shaheed is. Get the ball to him in open space and just let him run and go create some yards after catch. And then same thing with Tua. I mean, I went out and got Jalen Waddle, the number 2 wide receiver on this offense. I mean, yes, there's going to be some weeks that Tua and this offense are going to be going against bad teams, and they're going to be having a high spread for the game. And those are the games I'm going to want to have Waddle into it, and maybe over a C.J. Stroud, who may have a tougher team that week. Just try to pair those guys. I mean, I don't expect them to have a week 2 or week 3 against the Broncos where they put up 70 points. I don't expect anything like that. But again, they're going to be in a lot of, I wouldn't say close games, but a lot of high-scoring games, I feel like, throughout the year. And again, Tua is going to be a big part of that. I'm not a big Tua fan, but he has all the weapons in the world, and now I have his number 2 wide receiver to pair with him.
Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell, Ravens, Kamani Vidal, Khalil Herbert. I select Jahan Dotson, newly acquired by the Philadelphia Eagles. And that was why I selected Jahan Dotson. Because, look, I mean, yeah, the Eagles got a great 1-2 punch in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 was kind of questionable for me. I didn't think Goddard would necessarily step up to the plate. Jahan Dotson had a lot of potential in Washington, but it's one of those things, too, with Terry McLaurin. He just didn't have a quarterback to throw the ball. Now he's got one of the better quarterbacks, although not one of the better passing quarterbacks. There's overall quarterbacks in Jalen Hurts. I think they're going to find a way to make it work, especially since there's going to be so much coverage on A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Jahan Dotson is the guy that could kind of sleep through the cracks and really make an impact there. So I thought that was a huge win at going out and getting Jahan Dotson. Xavier Legette, Braylon Allen, Brock Bowers, Jets defense, Jalen Polk, Rashad Bateman, Roshan Johnson, Kirk Cousins, Goddard, Schultz, Cole Kmet, Ray Davis, Wan'Dale Robinson, TJ Hawkinson, and I select Bucky Irvin. Maybe to make you mad. No, I'm just kidding. No, I do like Bucky Irvin a lot. And I think, Rashad White's going to be great, but I think Bucky Irvin's going to actually find a deeper role in that Buccaneers offense from year one. And that was the biggest reason why. Darnell Mooney, Demario Douglas, DeMarcus Robinson, Freiermuth, Kendre Miller. Did you want to touch on Elijah Mitchell or Marshawn Lloyd, who you selected?
Elijah Mitchell for sure. I mean, when you have the first overall pick like I did, you go get Christian.
Yeah, true. Good point.
You got to go get that safety blanket in Elijah Mitchell. I get it. Isaac Guerrero was there. He's a rookie this year for the 49ers. Also know the rookie running backs Cody Schrader, but they're not going to be the 1 or 2. I know they also went and got Matt Breida, but again, none of those guys are close to Elijah Mitchell. I mean, Elijah Mitchell was a 1,000-yard running back one season with the 49ers there. He's that number 2 guy. McCaffrey with a calf strain. Again, don't know how quick of a start he's going to have. Who knows what the injury history of how bad it could potentially get, or how long it would take him to recover. And Elijah Mitchell slides into that number 1 RB spot from day one if there is an injury with McCaffrey. And that 49ers offense is so good that Elijah Mitchell's going to be forgotten about. He's still a good receiving back also for PPR leagues, but Again, I drafted him because he's the biggest safety blanket you can go get. I don't care if you draft Christian McCaffrey or not. If you're able to go get him later in your drafts, McCaffrey or not on your roster, again, he's a safety blanket for that entire team, that running back room, and he's worth the risk. I mean, he's a late round pick. If anything, if he gets injured, you can just drop him and probably find someone who is going to be productive on the team.
Tyler Conklin, Alexander Madison, Damian Pierce, Tyrone Tracy, Luke Musgrave. I select Ricky Pearsall because I didn't really have any other options. And I mean, I think there's potential. Still, Ayuk and Debo have not been moved. I think Pearsall could find himself as a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 on this team, but really as a guy, again, taking a high risk, high reward on. As you mentioned in the tips, one of the rookies that I just drafted, just maybe hold on to with a great offense. Maybe he could find his way into the range there. Justice Hill, Kenneth Gainwell, Audric Estime, AJ Dillon, Cowboys D, Tank Bigsby, Bengals, Kyle Juszczyk, Bills, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Marvin Mims, Steelers, Taysom Hill, Tucker Aubrey, Keaton Mitchell, Henry Lawrence Bucker, Texans, Chiefs, Sanders, Elliott, Lions, McPherson, Moody, Hopkins, Saints, Packers, Kamine Fairbairn, Young Hoku, Tyler Best, Picker the Kicker, Matt Gay, and Jason Myers. I can barely talk anymore, but thank you guys for listening to another episode here in The Truth. I hope you guys did enjoy it. I sure did. I'm struggling, if you guys cannot tell, but I really do appreciate you guys. Hopefully you're able to get some insight here, mainly from AJ, not as much from me. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you follow The Truth on Twitter, The Truth as one, to stay up to date with the latest information regarding The Truth, including podcast dates, podcast uploads, and other important information you don't want to miss. Make sure you guys also follow The Truth on Instagram and TikTok at the.tt.truth. Are you looking to find a drink that offers peak hydration, raises your energy levels, speeds up your recovery, and keeps your mind sharp through focus and memory? Look no further than Acid Rainwater. I'm excited to partner with Bloodline Sports AZ and Acid Rainwater, which focuses on peak hydration and productivity while also maintaining ecosystem-friendly product. Use code HESSON15, that's HESSON15 for 15% off every purchase. I'm going to go get myself some Acid Rainwater, guys, so go make sure you do the same. As always, I'm your host, one you love the most, Niall Hesson, joined once again by AJ Ponciano. Take care and good night.